All right, well, hey everyone, and welcome to today's very special live stream. It is so good to see all of you coming on here in the chat, and I'm so excited that you're going to join me and my friend John today. I'll introduce him in just a little bit, but so glad that you guys are joining us for this very, very special live stream as we look at what most churches don't teach you about how to study the Bible. And so it's going to be some really cool teaching, some strategies that I want to share with you today. But let me just say hi to you all real quick, because I see some people coming from all over. Let's see, we've got people from Kansas today. We've got from South Carolina. Let's see, Minnie from California, Michael from Oklahoma, Jenny from Florida. Good to see you today. Let's see, Germany. Welcome from Germany and South Africa. Thank you guys so much for staying up to tune into this today. I know it's a lot later where you are. Let's see, we've got Indiana, Cincinnati, North Carolina. It's Lisa from Fort Worth. Got Donna from Tennessee, Amy from San Antonio. Let's see, a lot of Texas people here today. Glad you all are here. We've got Beth from Tampa, Dee from Ohio, and it keeps on going. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so happy that you are here as part of this today. So like I said, as you can tell, I'm being joined today by a really good friend of mine, John Haley, and John came all the way from Pennsylvania to join me today. John is a pastor, but he is also an expert and a national speaker for a Bible study tool called Logos. And I'm really excited to have him here. So thank you, John, for being here today.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
So John is here today because he's going to help me with a really exciting lesson that I can't wait to share with you. Because today I'm going to be sharing with you what most churches don't teach you about how to study the Bible. At least these are things that I never really learned in all my time in church. And so I'm going to share with you what I think are some of the best strategies for studying the Bible, as well as one of the most important tools that I use for studying the Bible, something that I use every single day. And as I tell you more about that, we're going to do that a little bit later, and you're going to get to see it firsthand as we go through all of this today. But before I dive into this lesson, I first want to explain why we're doing this lesson and why I think it's going to be so important for you to be a part of this. So let me ask you, John, right? Have you ever found the Bible hard to understand?
Absolutely. Yeah, I live in Pennsylvania, so I didn't grow up in Palestine, and I look older, but I'm not that old. So yeah, there's a lot that you have to dig into and uncover. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, actually, absolutely. And me too, right? Honestly, one of the most common comments that I hear from people is that the Bible is just too hard to understand, right? It just doesn't make sense to me, people say, or people say, I don't even know where to start. And here's the thing, right? You might watch my videos and you might think to yourself that you have to be a biblical scholar to learn things like this, which I would say, honestly, I'm not a biblical scholar. I love to study, but I wouldn't call myself a scholar and put myself in league with people like that. Or you might think that you have to go to seminary or to Bible college in order to truly understand the Bible. But I need to tell you something, right? And I'm not sure if most people know this. I went to a great school for seminary. But what I'm about to teach you today, these are things that I learned simply from studying the Bible every single day and growing little by little over time. And that's what today is about, right? It's about giving you strategies and tools that will help you to grow in your understanding of the Bible every single time you read it. And John, that's something that you definitely know a lot about, right? Because you're quite familiar with one of these tools that we're going to be highlighting today.
Absolutely. Now, Logos is an amazing tool. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to kind of tag team with you and show you how it works. But I'll let you in on another little secret. I did not go to seminary. And so for me personally, Logos has just been an incredible tool for me. So real quick, I'm just going to share my screen because I want you to understand how Logos works a little bit as we go through this lesson. So Logos is a platform. It's a Bible study platform. So, you know, you have it and you've got thousands of books that you take with you. And so what it does is it takes all of these tools that you have. One of them we're going to look at today, but it's on my phone. So when I'm traveling, I've got all my books on my phone. I've got amazing Bible study tools, and it syncs everything. So any notes I'm taking, any sermons I'm writing, everything syncs across the board. And so that's what I want to show you. But I want to give you just a quick one kind of example of how it works. And I'm going to use a tool called the Fact Book. And the Fact Book is over here. And basically the idea behind the Fact Book is this. Well, first off, Brandon, you're a YouTuber, and have you ever noticed that Google's not a great place to go for theology?
It's not always the most reliable.
It's not most reliable. It's not always the most accurate. So the idea behind this is the fact book. And the idea behind the fact book is that we can type in this box right here. I launched this. We can have any person, place, thing, topic, date in church history, anything, and be able to dive into a fact book report. So I'll give an example. Well, here's one right here, tabernacle. I'm sure you've studied the tabernacle, but if you Google tabernacle, the number 1 or 2 hit, maybe 3, it's been a while since I looked. It's a nightclub in Atlanta.
Nice.
So yeah, and then let's use the example of hope. So if I wanted to study the concept of hope, you can just type hope in the box here. And I'm just going to click right here, click on hope. And immediately we've got a biblical definition. And then it's going to pull one of our key articles right here. And this is going to come from, a dictionary or a commentary or something that we trust because it's in our curated theological library. And so as you're reading through here, you can just click read more, and that's going to open up the panel and another resource for you. And then as you are doing research, you're writing devotions or whatever you want to do, all you got to do, you can even come over here, copy that. And I don't know if there's anybody online that's in seminary or writing sermons, but you can paste that right into the paper. And Logos cites the reference for you.
I love that. That's so helpful.
I didn't go to seminary, but it's pretty amazing that that's there. So that's the idea behind the fact book. But as you scroll down on the fact book, as you see, you've got all these other sections. So we're going to have some media. It's already tagged key passages that you can go look at that have to do with hope. And as you scroll down, dictionaries, journals, sermons that are in my library, all having to do with hope. So that's the idea behind it, is that Logos is going to be, as we'll see, we can dive deep into the Bible, but it's also a research assistant that's going to help us get high-level definition, but it'll also search your library and your Bible all at the same time. That's unbelievable.
Absolutely. And I love how it's across all levels of understanding, right? So whether you're somebody who's already had a lot of biblical education, or whether you're somebody who it's the first time you've ever done anything like this, I mean, it's accessible.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so helpful. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone deeper and been shocked at what I found.
So, yeah, absolutely. Well, excellent. So like I said, Logos is a tool that I use every day. And for those of you who are in the Beyond the Words membership, you've seen how often we use this when we dive into scripture as we do the Bible studies in that membership. I mean, it opens up so many different tools and strategies as you're studying the Bible. And so we're going to show you some concrete examples of that as we go throughout these teachings today. But first, let's dive into our first strategy so that you can see for yourself some things that you won't necessarily learn in church or in seminary, but that will absolutely open up the Bible for you in incredible ways. And so here we go. If you're taking notes, if you want to write it down, the first Bible study strategy that I want to teach you today is something called observe, interpret, apply. Let me say that again. It's observe, interpret, apply. And this has to be one of the most helpful strategies that I've ever learned. In fact, this was something that I was taught in college when training to be a small group leader. And what it is a simple progressive process for trying to understand a passage. You see, when many of us read the Bible, our initial temptation is to ask the question, what does this mean for me? Right? Have you ever done that? Like, how can I apply this to my life? And that is a great question, but that's actually putting the cart before the horse, right? That's coming to scripture with, in some ways, an agenda, right? And not truly letting God say everything that God wants to say. Because the truth is, what God might want to say, I hate to say this, but sometimes it may not apply to you at all, right? At least not in the way that you might approach it and want it to apply. It could just be something that God wants you to know, or something God wants you to wrestle with. And so whenever you read a passage, the first thing that you want to do is you want to just simply observe, right? What is happening in a passage? What did the scriptures say? What happened in those verses? Were other scriptures quoted or referenced that you needed to take note of? In other words, what did you notice? And then after that, the next thing you want to do is you want to interpret, right? You take what you observed, and then you ask the question, well, what does this all mean? Now, be careful, right? Because the question is not, what does this mean for me? It's simply just, what does this mean, right? Like, what did it mean for Jesus in this moment? What did it mean for Paul, for the Jewish people living thousands of years ago? And then after you've done both of those, then you can move on to the third step, which is application, right? And now you're asking the question, so now what does this mean for me, right? And what's so great is that this simple process then prepares you to fully hear what God wants to say through that scripture, right? And all of a sudden, you have more things to apply. You have more ways to connect this to your life than you ever would have if you just jumped in with that question first thing. And so what I want to show you right now is I want us to do this together. I want to show you how this works out. And so let's do this by looking at a popular passage in Luke's gospel. Let's look at Luke chapter 15, right? The story of the prodigals and the lost sheep and the lost coin. And so let me open up Logos and we can look at this together.
You ever thought about being a pastor?
Considered it. All right, so what you see right here is I've already got this pulled up. All right, we've got Luke chapter 15, and I'm just going to read for you verses 1 through 7. We're going to look at this together. So it says, now all the tax collectors and the sinners were drawing near to him, or drawing near to hear him. And both the Pharisees and the scribes were complaining, saying, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. So he told them this parable, saying, what man of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the grassland and go after the one that was lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he places it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he returns to his home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, because I have found my sheep that was lost. I tell you that in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need of repentance. Right? And so looking at this passage, what we're going to do is we're going to observe and interpret and apply. We're going to use this strategy. And the first thing we want to do when studying this passage, of course, is to just simply observe. And what that means is simply, what do I see? Right? Like, what's happening? You're not making any judgments about what's happening. You're not trying to figure out what it all means for you or, in any way like that. You're just observing. And so in the case of these verses, we might observe a few things, right? The first thing we might observe is who is around Jesus as he says these things. And so as we look just at verse 1, we can see that Jesus is surrounded by tax collectors, right? He's surrounded by sinners. He also is surrounded by Pharisees and scribes, right? We see all of these different groups right here in this moment. And so we're just paying attention to that, right? We're taking note of that. And later on, we'll see, if that has any significance. But right now, we're just noting that. Another thing that we might observe is that when Jesus addresses the religious leaders and the Pharisees, right, he says, what man of you having 100 sheep, right? So as we go down here, he says, what man of you? And so what we observe about that is that he is equating these religious leaders to shepherds, right? He's connecting the two together. And then we might observe that Jesus says that these shepherds have 100 sheep, right? But that the shepherd loses one, right? Losing one of them. Now, what he doesn't say is that the sheep wandered off, right? What we might notice here, what we might observe is that interestingly, Jesus says that the shepherd was the one who lost the sheep. And so again, we just take note of that. And then finally, another thing that we might observe is that later on, Jesus explains this parable. And he says that this lost sheep represents the sinners who repent, right? So as we go down here into the last one, there will be more joy over one sinner who repents. And the other sheep, right, the ones that were already in the fold that weren't lost, right? Those are the people who have no need of repentance. And so do you see how this is working, right? You're going through this and you're just observing, right? Perhaps you're writing down questions that come to mind, or you're just writing down these things that you notice. But once you've done that, then you move on to the next step, and that's interpret. And this is where we're wrestling with the question, okay, what does this mean, right? Not what does it mean for me? It's just, what does it mean, right? Is there significance to what I just observed? Does it lead me to ask more questions? Does it prompt me to look at other verses? And so as we look back at these particular verses, some ways that we might interpret what we're reading could be things like going back to the groups who were listed at the very beginning, right? And looking at these things like the tax collectors and the sinners and the religious leaders, right? The Pharisees and the scribes. And what we might notice is that even without a ton of knowledge about the Bible, we can pretty easily interpret that these groups are opposites, right? Tax collectors and sinners are quite different than scribes and Pharisees. And this might even be somewhere where we decide we want to do a little bit more digging, right? And look at other passages where these groups appear and see what their relationships are like in those passages. Or maybe we dig a little bit deeper and say, I don't know a whole lot about Pharisees. I don't know what the difference is between a Pharisee and a scribe. I don't understand why tax collectors are associated with sinners. As we dive into that, right? But in the end, what we're interpreting here is why these groups are included in this moment, right? Why does Luke mention them? Why are they important? And then another thing we might look back at is that thing we observed about losing one, right? Where it says they had 99 and they lost one. And so we might interpret this, as something where we're looking closely at, another thing we might do here is look closer at the unique detail that we observed here, that the shepherd loses the sheep. And this might make us want to dig in even deeper and research what life of a shepherd was like back then, right? And when we did that, we learned that a good shepherd never would have done something like this, never would have lost a sheep, right? Shepherds knew all of their sheep insanely well. Their sheep knew the sound of their voice. It would have been a shameful thing for a shepherd to lose a sheep like this, which then would have led us to our third observation, right? Which is Jesus's explanation of the parable. And when we go back down at the bottom, what we remember is that he says, right, that the sheep are the repentant sinners, which means that the sheep must be a reference to the sinners and tax collectors who we observed. But then look at what else he says, right? We observed how Jesus associates the religious leaders and the Pharisees with the shepherds, right? Think about that. He says, suppose one of you has 100 sheep, right? Suppose one of you losing 100 sheep. When we think about that, that changes things, because now we can interpret that what Jesus wants us to know is that not only are the sheep representative of the tax collectors and the sinners, the shepherd represents the Pharisees and the scribes, which means that Jesus is saying that just as the shepherd lost the sheep, the Pharisees and the scribes are responsible for losing the tax collectors and the sinners. Now, I want you to just think about that. I mean, that for me, when I read that is a whoa moment. Because I don't know about you, but that changes how I was taught this parable. I mean, I was always taught that the religious leaders were the sheep who didn't stray. But here, Jesus is saying that, yeah, maybe, but they are the shepherd. I mean, that changes everything, right? And so armed with that understanding, now we can move on to this final step. Now that we've observed what's happening and we've interpreted what it means, now we can figure out how it applies. And this is where we just want to start brainstorming all kinds of questions, right? Things like, if I'm a lost sheep, what is Jesus saying about me, right? Or if I'm already a believer, right? Somebody Jesus has given the Great Commission to, does that mean that I'm a shepherd, right? And so, if so, what does that mean about how I'm supposed to be looking after lost sheep? Or how about this, right? Jesus says that heaven is rejoicing when one repentant sinner returns. So how do I feel about the fact that heaven rejoiced over me? And am I rejoicing over repentant sinners who give their lives to Jesus, right? Does that bring me joy like it brings heaven joy? Or what am I doing to bring Christ to other people, right? What is my church doing? How are we doing about this as Christians in general? What needs to change? I mean, do you see how the list of questions can go on and on? And all of that comes from just observing, interpreting, and applying. I mean, it's amazing. It is so simple, but so powerful. And yet, John, right, there are also some other amazing tools and logos that can enhance this, that can help us dive even deeper into this observe, interpret, apply strategy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I got kicked off your internet, though, so I'd like to try and get back on, but I'll answer some questions if you're able to get me back on there. There's some questions in the chat about a free version of Logos. There is a free version. It's not going to have all of the tools that you're going to see tonight. And Jan, she asked, is Logos an app? Logos is an app, but there's also a mobile app. There's a web-based app. There is a desktop app, which is what we're looking at tonight. So, but again, it's the most powerful Bible study software on the planet. And I saw another question here. Oh, do I have a YouTube channel? Not yet, but I'm actually working on one. I've made it my goal in life to try and catch up to Brandon, only just doing Logos videos. So we'll see what happens, but that's probably not going to happen. Yeah. Hold on one sec. I'm almost back on Zoom here. Give me 1 second. Go.
Live. This is real.
This is real. This is the real life. Good to go. All right. All right, let me share my screen now. Stop my video. There we go. Okay. So Logos, we're coming back here to our Bible that we're studying. So we were in Luke 15. So one of the things that I love what Brandon's talking about is how we're observing all of these different things going on. So one of the amazing tools that we're going to look at today is called the Passage Guide. So you use this tool a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So this is found over here under Guides and Workflows. So I'm just going to click here on this, and I'm going to launch my Passage Guide. And you put in your scripture, so you can study whatever you want, but we're going to go ahead and put in 1 through 7, and I'm going to run this Passage Guide now. Now, the amazing thing about this is that we have all the commentaries in our library. Remember, so Logos is taking all of those, it's opening them all up for us right here. So every commentary in my library is already opened up. So we can already go deeper there if we want. But the cross references you're talking about here, we've got all of those right here in this Passage Guide section. Coming down here, here's some words that you might want to look at. This is actually an algorithm that programmers wrote that go out and search the entire library in the Logos ecosystem. Wow. And put them right in order of how many times people are talking about these words. But then we're dealing with things like cultural concepts. So here, pastoral activity, tax collector, Pharisees, biblical people. It's already figured out, just by looking at the verses, who's playing a part in this passage. So I love this about the Passage Guide. And as you go down, as you can see, biblical things, biblical places, biblical events, even this is giving you context and what's happening in the scripture in that moment. Yeah. All broken down for you. And as you can see, as you go down, there's so much here, but I use this Passage Guide all the time. But I love what you're talking about, Brandon, about the, observe. This is called the inductive Bible study method. And I want to show everybody in Logos, there is actually called a workflow already built in. And it takes people step by step through this. Wow. So I can come down here and I'm going to go down to workflows. And you can see we have all kinds of them. So basic Bible studies, devotional workflows. But here we've got our inductive Bible study workflow. So if we want to, we just go ahead and we put in Luke 15, 1 through 7, hit return. Luke 15 through 7. Too much coffee today. But check this out. We've got our 3 major steps, but it's all broken down for us, okay? But what Logos does is it lets you just click continue as you go through the steps, and it brings all the tools up for you. So here we're observing, read the passage multiple times, and you just click here, loads up your Bible. And right here, you put in a little note. Here is a brilliant note. And Logos creates a note for me, and it's created a notebook. And so as you go down through, you just click continue and go step by step. And it's got all of the different steps, compare Bible versions. There's all my top 5 preferred Bibles. Identify people here down here. There's our people we're talking about. So it just takes you step by step.
That's excellent.
It's pretty amazing.
and what I love about that is, like, as you look at Logos and you look at all these features, you might think to yourself, well, like, that's overwhelming. How do I know where to start, what to do? And to have a workflow like that just guides you through step by step and just says, all right, here's the next thing. Here's what we'll do. And, one of the things I find as I go through my own workflows and find my own ways to study the Bible is you're just picking it up over time, right? You're finding what works for you, and you kind of lean into those things that are really, really helpful. And so it may all seem like a ton at first, but you just go slowly, right? You just go through it little bit by little bit, and all of a sudden, you're able to just pick up on this stuff easier the next time you do it. And you're going to see even more of these things as we dive into it here and just show you how to use some of this. So let's Let's dive into our next strategy. Let's see what's next. So our next strategy number 2, is to identify keywords. So if you want to write this down, identify keywords. And what that means is that we want to find those words as we're reading a passage that are most important to the verse, and then really dive into them. And so let me show you what this looks like. We're going to do another example here by diving into logos. So this time we're going to go and we're going to look just at Mark chapter 1, right? Just the beginning of Mark's gospel and what he has to tell us about Jesus. So Mark begins his gospel by saying, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now you might look at that and you might think to yourself, that seems really simple, and just keep on reading. I mean, that's what I did for most of my life. But one of the things I've found as I've slowed down and I've started to focus on keywords and things like that, is that sentence is filled, right? In the membership, I did a Bible study. The whole Bible study, I'm pretty sure, was just on that verse. I mean, there is so much in that verse to try to unpack and really understand what Mark is saying through those exact words that he's using. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can identify the keywords as you're going through something like this, right? One is to just notice them, right? What are the words that jump out at you? What are the words that maybe confuse you or interest you? And I think a great example of this in another place in the Bible is something like when Jesus tells people that they need to hate their parents, their siblings, their spouses, their children, and themselves in order to be his disciples. I mean, it's quickly obvious that hate is a key word there. I mean, everything rests on that word, and it's that word that confuses us, right? And so we know to dive into that keyword. So sometimes keywords are just obvious, but other times we can actually find tools to locate them. And this is where one of my favorite Logos features comes in handy. You see, whenever I study the Bible, I always have 2 things open, and you can see them on my screen right now. One of them is the Lexham English Bible. That's just a Bible that I've found in here. I like how it translates things. And so that's the one I lean into. But the other one is the Faith Life Study Bible. And this is just a really good basic commentary that I actually think goes even deeper than your average commentary and just highlights some really, really wonderful things. And so these two are always side by side for me, because the Faith Life Study Bible is often my first step if I want to dig deeper. It's got a pretty solid basic commentary on each verse. And so in a case like this, it's a really great place to look for keywords. I mean, just the note on verse 1, right? Highlighting the word euangelion. Right. And so what this is telling us is that this is a word that's translated both good news and gospel. Well, that catches our attention, right? Like, oh, this word here means gospel, but it also means good news. Well, how do those 2 things go together? Right. And so now we know to look a little bit more into that. Well, what does this word euangelion really mean? What is its history? What else is going on there? And we find some amazing things as we dive deeper. Right. Or what we might also do is we might look below that and we see the word Jesus. Right, which shows us that Jesus's Greek name, right, is Jesus, but its also Hebrew counterpart is Yeshua. And that note is telling us that this is related to the name Joshua, that it means God saves, right? So this tells us what Jesus's very name means and what Mark is trying to communicate through that. And then you look right below that, right, and you see the word Christos, right? It highlights how Christos is this Greek word to describe Jesus. And what we read here is that there's a connection between this word and the Hebrew word Mashiach, right? This word that means anointed one, and from which we get this word Messiah. And so each of these things, right? So each of these things that it has highlighted for us is an opportunity for us to dig deeper, because each of these tells us something important about Jesus. I mean, his very name means God saves. He is the Messiah that we've been waiting for. And all of this is good news. I mean, this is what Mark is communicating in just one verse. For somebody who has never read the Bible, that is a lot packed into just one verse. But we're only scratching the surface. I mean, there's so much more we can do as we dive into this, right? And so, John, show us some other things that we can dig into. I'll let you share your screen.
Well, one of the things, I love how you go into the words, because that is so key. You know, I think sometimes we take a Bible and we look at the surface text and we see English words. And, you know, sometimes if we're on sometimes we're on a different app and we'll search just the English words, but it's not the English words underneath. So we want to be able to find, what are the Greek, the Hebrew, the Aramaic words, where are they being found? So one of the amazing tools that I use all the time is this. It's called a Bible Word Study Guide. Now you can come over here and you can click guides and come over here and just launch the Bible Word Study Guide right from here. But a little shortcut, some of you may have Logos already. I love to just go ahead and highlight a word, and all you do is click study and it launches the Bible Word Study Guide for you. Now, the beautiful thing about this, of course, is that if you just want some quick definition information, that's what this is doing. This word lemma, I didn't even know what the word lemma meant because I didn't go to seminary, but I learned when I started using Logos, that's the dictionary form of the word. But all of my dictionaries, my lexicons are right here. So if I want to read more and go more in depth, you just click on the link and it opens it up right for you. Awesome. Now, you went to seminary, so you're familiar with this one, but isn't it so nice you can have the outline formatting? That's way less complicated.
Absolutely. No, they didn't teach me what lemma meant in seminary, so I don't know what to say.
That must be a Logos thing. I don't know. But as you go down here, though, there's also this section called the translation wheel. And I love this. I mean, it looks cool, but here's the thing. This lemma, this dictionary form of the word that is being translated here as wilderness, is actually translated as desert or deserted or desolate, isolated in all of these different places. So if you want to kind of connect the two together and figure out where it's being translated, you just click on the ring on the color and it breaks it out for you and shows you all the verses. So in this case, if we come up here and I'm looking here and I come here and it's like I see in Mark 1:35 that getting up early in the morning while it was very dark, he departed and went into a deserted place. So this word is being translated as deserted. And I love this tool.
Yeah. And what I think is so important to notice about that, right, is what you were saying about how we just read the English and we're looking for where else does that English word appear. But originally they weren't reading that, right? So this is the word eremos. So they're seeing that word and they're seeing that word appear over and over and over again, just like they might see euangelion appear over and over and over and over again. And that really begins to point out some things for us and actually shows us some connections between things, even right here in Mark. And so, John, if you click back on that one that says wilderness, and go down and we look a little bit down here and we see Mark 1:13 says, and he was in the wilderness 40 days being tempted by Satan, and he was with the wild animals and the angels were ministering to him. Right. So what Mark is telling us is that Jesus spends these 40 days in at that point, it's probably the Judean wilderness. Right. So Jesus is out there. He's in the desert. He has no food. He has no water. And we imagine wilderness as this barren place. And one of the things that word wilderness does for us is that it reminds us of where else that word has appeared in Scripture, right? So the wilderness is this place of testing. It was where the Hebrew people were tested. And in this instance, it's where Jesus is being tested. And so this is Mark's way of showing us, right, showing his audience that Jesus isn't just some random rabbi who's come on the scene. He's been tested and he's proven that he can withstand that testing. But he's also doing something even deeper here, right? There's something else going on because this is also Mark's way of giving us a glimpse into Jesus's humanity and the things that he's struggling with. So later on, right, and John just highlighted this for us, in verse 35, we see that this word is translated differently, right? Our Bibles call it a deserted place. But here's the thing, it's actually the same word, it's eremos. And so it would literally read, Jesus went to a wilderness. But if you've ever been to Israel and you've ever been up in the Galilee, you know that there's no wilderness up in the Galilee. Like it's not a wilderness up there. But what Mark is trying to show us is that Jesus has gone to a deserted place. And again, he's being tested. Right? It's the same word. And so at this point, if you're like paying attention to the context of what's been happening up to this moment, Jesus has been surrounded by these crowds. These huge crowds are forming. And there's this huge desire among people for Jesus to just be this local healer and teacher. But in the midst of that, it says that Jesus leaves and he walks away into this deserted place, into this wilderness. And there he chooses not to give into that, but to pursue his bigger mission. Right? So he's again being tested in this moment and he passes it. Right? And all of that gets communicated in that word wilderness. It's amazing how you can see those connections.
Absolutely. Oh, it's incredible. I love that. I was going to share one more thing, because I know people have this tool, but watch this. If you wanted to just do a quick search on any word, come in here, highlight that word, and just click search, and Logos runs a search on the lemma for you.
There you go.
It's that easy.
And yeah, so you see there like what it's doing, right? It's not even just translating wilderness like we would find if we searched in English, but it's giving you desolate and all those other words too. And so that just really helps us to see those connections and where it appears. That's great.
Fantastic.
All right. So now let me take you into our final teaching. All right, let's dig into our last strategy. And this is one that we're going to call word parallels. And then what this is this is where you look at where a word appears in different parts of the Bible. Right? So we just kind of saw where it appears in one passage. This is where you see connections between different parts of the Bible and how those connections actually might change the meaning of that word, right? And so we just saw this, like I said, right? In a moment just a moment ago, where Mark takes that word wilderness, and in verse 13, that impacts how we read verse 35. Right? But now we're going to see how this happens in an even bigger way through words that appear in totally different parts of the Bible. And so let me dive in again and show you what we're talking about. So this time we are going to look at Matthew chapter 5. All right, we're going to look at Matthew 5:3. So this is Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. He's starting to give the Beatitudes. And Jesus begins by saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, if you're like me, this verse was always somewhat confusing. I mean, first off, what does Jesus mean by poor in spirit? I mean, does he mean people who are sad, like poor in a spirit that way? Is he talking about people who've gone through tragedy? Is he talking about people who are actually poor? I mean, that's kind of how Luke says it. Luke just says, "Blessed are the poor." So why, and then even like beyond that, like why on earth would any of those people be considered blessed? What is Jesus getting at here? And so here's where we're going to actually use another strategy, right? One that I call lean into confusion. And what that means is that instead of shying away from confusing passages like this is where we dig deeper. And we are running into a technical difficulty here. So let's just do that right here, right? Let's dig a little bit deeper and see what's going on here. So we're looking at how he says poor in spirit. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to use the passage guide that John showed us earlier. And I'm going to take a look at what is going on here. And if there's anything maybe I'm missing or anything that will help me to understand what this word, this phrase poor in spirit means. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 5, verse 3. And what it's going to show us here is these other parts of the Bible where this phrase, something similar to this, appears, right? So it's not necessarily a quote, but it's somewhere else in the Bible where we're seeing the same sort of thing being said. And one of the things we notice is down here in Isaiah chapter 66. He says, "Has not my hand made all of these things? And so they came into being, declares the Lord. These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit, and who tremble at my word." And so what he's getting at here, right? What is happening in this moment is that as we look at Isaiah, we see that when Isaiah uses this phrase, and he says, humble and contrite in spirit, he's talking about this idea of humility. And so understanding what Isaiah is saying when he uses that phrase, now that changes what Jesus is saying, right? So when Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," he's drawing from this idea from Isaiah, and he's saying, blessed are those who are humble, right? Blessed are those, right? Not just in humble circumstances, that's part of it, but blessed are those who realize that they have nothing if not the Lord, right? If they don't have the Lord. I mean, that's a very different thing, right? To realize that Jesus is saying, blessed is the person who says, I am fully reliant upon the Lord. My satisfaction, my joy, everything I have comes from the Lord. I mean, when you hear that, now all of a sudden it makes sense when Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? When you have that sort of humility, when you love the Lord and are devoted in that sort of way, you're already experiencing the kingdom of heaven. And this is one of the other things we see as we dive into this, is Jesus talking about the kingdom of heaven as this thing that is eternal, but also very present and real right now, right? You're experiencing that kingdom of heaven right now in this life. And all of these things just begin to come together. And so it's as we look at the connections, right? As we lean into this confusion, as we look at these parallels between these words, that we really begin to see how one passage interprets the other. And so just some amazing stuff as you look at those tools.
It's so incredible. I love it. You should preach more.
I might do it on Sunday.
Oh man, I love that phrase, the kingdom of heaven too. I was going to look at that real quick. Let me come back here. The kingdom of heaven. This is an instance where I would probably want to learn a little bit more about this, and I can go to the fact book and open up the fact book, and then you could just type in kingdom of, and you'll just let it sit for a second and look at all this. We got all these. The fact book gives you nuanced reports. I don't know if you know that, but it's the kingdom of God, kingdom of Judah, kingdom of Satan, kingdom of France. We won't go into that one right now, but kingdom of God. Click on that and check this out. We've got the Google top definition right here, but I love this resource. Have you ever checked this Lexham Survey of Theology? The Lexham Survey of Theology, I think, is built into most of our, if not all of our base packages. So I love this resource, and it's giving you the definition of the kingdom of God and talking about this and all the different ways it's interpreted. But again, with the fact book, as you scroll down, what I love about this is there's your key passages that we're talking about here, and everything's been tagged. As you scroll down, I was doing this earlier and I noticed it's really fascinating. My dictionaries are all there. So I have more dictionaries in my library, but check this out. This cultural concept section pops up. And so you can come down here, and I just want to see where it's found in the Bible. And there's all the verses on the kingdom of God that are found in the Bible. So again, the fact book is pretty cool. So I love that.
That's cool. Now, John, are there any other features you're like, man, people just need to see this? Like, this is
okay,
where it gets really cool.
This, I think, is some of the most fun stuff because, Logos is, if you're not familiar, Logos is like 400 employees, been around for over 30 years. 9 million users. So they got some tools. These are called interactives. They're found under the tools here. I'm just going to go ahead and launch this here so you can see this. But this is some of my favorite. Interactives are tools that allow us to interact with Scripture.
Yeah.
And so this one is called the Psalms Explorer. And I love this one because I'm going to tell you why. It looks cool, but each bubble represents a psalm. And the bigger the bubble, the bigger the psalm. But you can see they're sorted by the genre, by the structure, by the author, by the book. So we've got all of these amazing tools. But what I love about this, have you ever in your life, your worship life's been dry and you turn to the Psalms?
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, I had a girlfriend dump me and I turned to the Psalms. And who knows what your
place to go.
That's the place to go, right? And so here, we've tagged every psalm with themes. So if your worship life is dry and you want to dive in, you can just click on worship and it filters them out for you. And then if you want to come in here and let's dive into God's faithfulness, and then maybe you want to dive into all the Psalms David wrote, you can come up here and click on David and then just put them right in order. And here we've got all the Psalms that David wrote. And so on these filters that we have pushed. But what I love about this, I've been experimenting with this. This is a little technical, but I love the structure. This button, I could turn that on and off. So I'm kind of diving into chiastic psalms these days.
Sure.
And so the chiastic psalm structure is already there for you. This is where the A matches A, B matches B, and then the psalmist is working towards the middle, which is kind of like the main point.
Yeah.
And I love that. And you could turn the parallelism on and off. And if you could read Hebrew, you could turn that on as well. So I love the Psalms Explorer. It's so applicable. It's fun. But that's just one of the tools that I love. Another one that I love is this one called the Weights and Measures Converter.
Yeah.
I'm convinced, I don't know, you're obviously studying the Bible a lot, but you ever notice that if you gloss over the numbers, you miss out on the glory of God? I really believe that. And so I didn't know what a cubit was. I don't know what shekels were. So you can type in any weight measurement here. So if I wanted to do, I'm reading Noah's Ark and 300 cubits, just type it in. And then you can hit return and get an image for just how big that is. And so it kind of brings the Bible to life. I do this with the kids, 475 feet. That's pretty big for a boat. I've done some woodworking, but that's a lot.
And I think what this helps us to do is if you're anything like me, my temptation when I get to those things that I don't understand is to just go past it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it feels like too much effort. Like, how am I going to figure out what a shekel really is or what a cubit is or any of those sorts of things? And so this just makes it accessible to where all you do is type that in. And you're like, okay, now this is the size. This is what God is talking about here. And then you begin to gather the scale, like you said. I mean, I remember I was in Israel for the first time, and we went to this place in southern Israel. We're actually going to go there next year when we go back. But there's this life-size replica of the tabernacle. I mean, and so that gave me perspective, right? That changed forever how I read any passage about the tabernacle.
Absolutely.
And this does the same sort of thing where it just kind of brings it to life in this different sort of way.
Absolutely. Another one that does that, in a sense, is this before and after tool. So we've got amazing people that work at Logos, and we've got these images that they've rendered. So, I mean, you've been to Jerusalem how many times?
I've been twice, and we're going again next April.
That's awesome. So here on this side, we have an article on Jerusalem, and all the links here linking to the fact book, so if you want to dive in further, so you can learn about it. But here's an image, a satellite image on Jerusalem. And if you take this bar, you can see the satellite image of what it looks like today, but then you slide it over and it's going to actually show you an artist rendition of what it looked like in Bible times.
Yeah.
Isn't that so cool?
Well, what I think is so cool about that too, is I know one of my experiences when going to Israel was when you look at the Temple Mount, your main thought, like the main icon is the Dome of the Rock, but that's not a Christian thing. It's not a Jewish thing. It's a Muslim thing that kind of lives on this Temple Mount. And so here you're seeing what they saw when they stood on that hillside and they looked down, right? Yeah. They saw the temple.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Powerful thing.
And then one more I'll show you, because this is one of my favorites. This is a little more technical, but this is a pretty amazing one. It's called the Bible Books Explorer. And you open this up and you can click on right here on books. So if you're studying a book of the Bible, click on that and you'll get this little diagram here. All the colors are telling you what kind of genre it is. So it's breaking it out for you. But if you wanted to study a book, just click on it, left click, and it gives you an overview, all linking to the fact book with some key stats. But I think the coolest part is this inner text feature right here. So if you are studying a book and you want to see how it's quoted, you have citation, quotation, allusion, echo. So if I click quotation and I want to see all the places Psalms are quoted in the New Testament, check this out. Just hover over Psalms, click on it, and Logos runs an incredibly complicated search that you just had to click a button. Isn't that amazing?
That's pretty cool.
And it goes both ways. So if I wanted to go back to Hebrews and see all the places that Hebrews quotes the Old Testament, click that way. Now you're going from New Testament to Old Testament.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've talked about a lot in the membership is the importance of diving into Old Testament scriptures and how often that's quoted in the New Testament. But sometimes it's like, it's not even quoted. It's just referenced and it's just there. And everybody back then would have caught it, but we don't catch it. And to be able to see those connections really helps you to interpret that passage more broadly.
Absolutely.
That's so cool.
That's fantastic.
So you guys have gotten to see some really just cool things that we can do in Logos, but just also how that helps you to study the Bible. And I really hope that you've been able to walk away today with this idea that understanding the Bible does not have to be hard. You don't have to have a biblical education at some sort of university to be able to do it. Like, we can do this. It takes time and it takes tools, but there are tools to help you to do that. Right. And so these are just a few strategies that will change the way you read the Bible the very next time you read it. And so, you can always follow along as we go through Logos and as we show you how to use it, or you can use it yourself in your daily sort of Bible study. And so, John, tell people, like, how might they be able to do that?
Absolutely. Well, and I will say this too. I've been thinking about this. Why do I love Logos so much? I love the Bible, but I love Logos so much because I've really been thinking, when I go to Logos, I have a confidence that I don't have to gloss over something in scripture. And that has really made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
So I am really excited. I was explaining to Brandon right before I got here that we get to give the best discount. You can't get a better discount online right now. So 20% off of Logos. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. We have a monthly payment option and how it works. And I realize we got people all over the world, and we've got multiple languages. So if you go to logos.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little flag. You can click on it and see all the different languages that we have. So Spanish is bilingual as well, but we've got French, Chinese, Korean. So be sure to check that out. And the way it works is you've got different libraries. So when you buy Logos, you get different libraries that are going to help you go deeper. So you got a bundle of books. So I'm just going to talk about 3 of them real quickly here. And again, you can download on all of your devices. I saw some questions in the chat about that. It's going to work on Apple. It's going to work on Windows. It's going to work on your iPhones and Android devices. And there is a web-based app as well. So again, it's a whole platform. So Logos is billed in US dollars. So keep that in mind. But the bronze library is going to have pretty much every tool that we showed today. There might miss a couple books here and there. It's about 150 different books that come in this library. So that $8,000 is not the price. So don't worry.
That's good.
If I took Brandon's card and I went down to Barnes & Noble and I bought all the books, which you won't find those at Barnes & Noble, but you know, that's how much you would spend. So the regular price is $629. And if you just want to do it one time, pay it off, you're done, $500, or you can do $43 a month. And so this is not a subscription. I got to let people know that. This is 43 and 14 months and you're done, okay? The Silver Library, if you want to get into some more Greek and Hebrew word studies, I think the Silver is the one that has the pretty much everything that I showed. The only tool that I think is that Bible Books Explorer. I think that comes in Silver. I could be wrong, but that's the book value. That's the number of books, so it almost doubles. And that's the special event price, and that's monthly, so $57 for 16 months. And Gold is actually our best seller. This has about $19,000 worth of books. That's the special event price. That's the monthly. Now, I'm going to give you a landing page in just a second, but if you want to get this at 24 months, you've got to email me because it's not available online that way. You'll see it. It'll make sense. So again, download to all your devices. You have a lifetime license. So this is just like you bought a book and it's yours. Okay, so Logos figures out anytime we have new upgrades, like what books you've already purchased. So it's never going to charge you for the same book again. Training online as well, and the Bible says you're one with your spouse, so you can share it with your spouse. I did see a question about sharing with a church of 40 people. A Logos is a license because you're buying books, so there's copyright issues, but you can share with your spouse. So not 40 people, but logos.com is /Brandon. This is the landing page we've put up for you, Brandon, and your crowd here. And the coupon code is Robbins1023. So there's my email. That's the coupon code does expire, and we actually gave everybody an extra day.
Awesome.
We didn't want it to end on Friday the 13th, so that worked out in our favor.
Smart. That's not good luck.
So email me if you do have any questions. I know there was a ton of questions, but you know, when you have hundreds of people, we don't get to all the questions, but feel free to email me. That's my email. Just practice fruit of the Spirit, especially the patience and kindness part. So I got to drive home tonight, but I'll get to all the emails as soon as I can.
Yeah, awesome. And you know, like I said at the very beginning of this is something that I use every single day. I mean, it is part of my regular Bible studies. It's something that I use when I dive deep into the Bible. In fact, let me show you something. Like, I have a huge book library. I love books. I've, bought books for years. And one of the commentaries that I use is this commentary series right here. Now, this is one book. There's like 13 of them. And so if I want to use that and I want to study a passage, either I have to lug around a super heavy book, or I have to take, all 13 of them and carry a cart, right? I mean, it's not possible. But having tools like that in Logos, right? Having that right there, I mean, it's wherever you are. Like, I can look into that. I can dive into that. I can study that. It's just such a powerful resource. And I love it. Now, I know there are many of you out there who are like, I can't afford that. And I totally understand. And one of the things I always want you to know is you don't have to have this tool to study the Bible. I mean, there's other tools I use, right? I use the physical books that I have. There's free things out there like Blue Letter Bible, and they all do a lot of great things, and you can use those tools. And so don't ever hear me saying that you can't, but this is just an amazing tool, right? It's an investment. It's the sort of thing where it gives you abilities to do things that you can't really find in one place anywhere else. Or sometimes it's hard to even find any of these features anywhere else, but it gives you that capability if you have the ability to invest in it. And so, yeah, we're going to continue to use it and just show you. And so you're always welcome to watch that and just see some of the cool things we pull out of it. And I'm going to continue to use it in my teachings. But this is a really great opportunity if you want to get it. It's an awesome discount.
Amazing discount. Yeah.
And one of the things I want you to know, I always want to be full disclosure. When you buy this, the ministry actually receives a portion of that. And so that goes to the work that we do. It goes to the things that we produce. And so if you love supporting this channel, Doesn't cost you anything extra, but it definitely comes back and allows us to do even more things, film in the Holy Land, some of these big projects we have planned for the future. This makes that possible. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's
John.
been fun.
Thank you for traveling to be here. Thank you all for attending. A couple other questions, Leanne, that we should look at. Are they all in the Zoom chat? Great.
Okay,
Thanks for letting us know. What's the coupon code? Let's make sure we
throw
put
that
that
up
back
here
up.
again. I will let you know, Brandon. I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but this is the first webinar I've done not in my sweatpants. I hope you're on.
Nice.
Okay, there's your coupon code right there, Robbins 1023. And let's see, what were some of the questions? I'll leave this up and then maybe we have a couple minutes. You can get a couple questions.
So make sure to go to logos.com/Brandon. Pretty simple link, and that same code. And somebody asked for John's email address. And so that is down there at the bottom, john.haley@logos.com.
Yep, absolutely. So, and I did see a question about Faith Life and Logos. Are they the same thing? And the quick answer is yes. Faith Life is like the umbrella organization. Logos is the company that's the product. So,
but if you see a Faith Life email, sometimes they're tied together and things like that, receipts you might get or something.
Yep.
They're connected. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Somebody wanted you to go through the prices one more time.
Sure.
Just kind of give people a sense of what that might be.
I'll go back here. So again, basically think of Logos as you're buying 150 books at the same time. So free software, lots of books. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So bronze is kind of a good place to start. And again, it's a one-time, it's going to be 504. So if you just want to pay one time and be done with it, or you can do monthly for 14 months. So 43 for 14 months. Silver, again, I think it's a great place to start. There are some amazing tools, especially if you're in ministry. There's actually a sermon building app in there. There's a counseling guide app in there, but the books and resources, 270 of those. And this is really where the word studies start to kick in. So a lot of Hebrew and Greek resources. That's a special event. It's almost $200 off, and then 57 for 16 months. And then gold is where it basically doubles your books, and so $64 a month for 24 months. But again, with this one, I'm going to reiterate, email me, because you'll get on the website, which, by the way, I meant to show here. Hold on one sec. Let's see if this is up here. I'm going to go to logos.com. If my computer stops doing stuff. I think AI is taking over. Logos.com/Brandon. Oh, I mistyped it. Well, go to logos.com/Brandon and you'll see that discount. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
So a couple other questions we got, John. One is somebody's asking if they've got a base product. Is it easy to upgrade? How does that work?
Yep. Use the same code and you'll be able to, Logos figures it out. You just make sure you're signed into your Logos account, and that's going to automatically figure out what your price is. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I'll let Brandon share his screen.
Yeah,
so you can see what that looks like.
Yeah, we wanted to be able to show you the Logos page where you can go. So here it is right here. So if you go to logos.com/Brandon, you see right here, it's got all of these. And, we mentioned 3 of them right now, but you can scroll this and there are other levels, as you go and kind of some more basic levels. And then there's also some, if I know somebody mentioned they might have had the platinum or something like that, and where they're actually asking, are the features that you talked about today all in the platinum?
They will all be in the platinum. Actually, all of the features in Logos come in gold. So and most of them in silver. There's only 1 or 2 features in gold that are not in silver, and that is the translation tool, where you can highlight any text and translate it into over 100 different languages.
Oh, wow.
And then the other one is the print library search, where you can scan the books on your shelf, search your library, and it'll show you a page number, where to go pull that book off the shelf. So that's a huge feature. I didn't show that tonight, but it's pretty incredible.
That's a feature I use all the time. Like I said, I've got a big library. And what's cool about that is if you do have a bunch of books you've already purchased and you don't necessarily want to repurchase them in Logos, what you can do is you can search any of the text. Like you can search the text of those books and it will give you the reference. So I do this all the time. Many of you have heard me talk about sitting at the feet of Rabbi Jesus. Right? Well, I will search for something, and if it appears in that book, I'm like, oh, it's on page 126. I open up page 126, and it just makes it that much easier. It might not be in the index or in any place like that. So it's a really cool tool. I use that a lot.
It does have to be on the Logos platform, just a little, but there's 200,000 books on the Logo.
I don't think I found one yet that wasn't. So
that's good.
Yeah, pretty safe bet.
James Patterson wasn't, but
I was searching him for some biblical stuff and it just didn't pop up. I don't know what's going on. Let me make sure we didn't miss anything.
Gold is for this kind of learner. So one of the questions is, what is a good package for what, maybe you're a pastor, maybe, how would you choose? Well, if you go to the site, there's actually a survey or a questionnaire you can choose, and it'll help that. But I would say what might be easier is email me because I can help you. But I would say kind of a blanket statement. If you want to get into deeper Bible study, I would always push people towards silver at minimum. But if you're in ministry, youth ministry, you're preaching a lot, and you maybe just like to go really deep, then I would go with gold and above. After that, it's all about books. Another, I think the platinum is a sweet spot in the library that we're showcasing because it's got the pillar commentary. And then the diamond library is great if you are a doctorate of ministry. If you're in school and you're studying to be a doctorate, because there's about 1,500 periodicals and theological journals that are in that library.
Yeah.
So that's a quick answer.
And then there's like some level that has like every resource ever created on the face
if you
of the
have
earth.
$100,000 or something, you can get it all.
I don't think you need to start there. So hopefully we've answered everything. And if you have questions, john.haley@logos.com.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And so he can answer all your questions about that. But thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this was a blessing and that you were able to learn some things and that this changes your very next Bible study. Make sure to tune in each week. We've got videos coming out where we're going to continue to teach you and talk about some of the other great ways you can learn. And just thank you, John, for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Leanne, for running our chat.
Yes.
All right, everyone. It's great to see you. You all have a great day. Good job. Good job.